time seems to be at odds with the scientific picture of the world. It's Torah and Teva. Teva is the Hebrew word for nature. Yes. So if there's only one author for the both, then there has to be conflict, it's not conflict. And often it comes out to be that when there are theological questions that arise, they'll tell you that the science is wrong. It's usually the theologist doesn't know much science. And when the science that arises that seems to say the Bible is wrong, it's usually the scientist doesn't know much Bible. And the key is if you want to see a shiluv, an integration between Torah and Teva, you should have some background of Torah and some background of Teva. And that's pretty much what we're going to try to see today, whether or not there can be confluence where sometimes there seems to be conflict. So the question that I've been asked to discuss for the next half an hour or so is the age of the universe. If we add up all the years, first of all, we have to see, I'm about to sneeze, I don't want to do it for that.
Bless you.
You guys, I take it as a, okay? Don't anyone grab my shoulders, right over. Okay. We have a science number that goes into billions of years. We have an age of the universe, and a biblical number that goes to thousands of years. Is there any way of understanding this without bending either the science or the Bible? The answer is yes, provided we use both science and Bible. All of my work, with no exception, only uses ancient biblical commentary. No modern biblical commentary, because all modern commentators, whether they're theologians or whether they're scientists, have heard about dinosaurs, heard about the Hubble telescope, always bending the Bible to match the science, and the science to match the Bible. So I would use ancient commentaries. That would be either Talmudic sources, or primarily the Ramban, not Maimonides, almost 1,000 years ago. Maimonides about the year, the Rambam, the name Maimonides would be about the year 1190, the Ramban would be about the year 1250, Rush about 1090. In other words, way before people were digging up fossils and saying, wow, cavemen. Okay? So ancient commentary and modern science, to see if there is, in fact, without bending the Bible, to see if there is confluence as opposed to conflict. And I said the question that we deal with tonight is a scattered question, but one is the age of the universe. If I add up all the ages that are given in the Bible, and it's important to realize that the Torah didn't have to tell us that Adam and Eve live 130 years and have a kid named Seth, chapter 5, or that Seth lives 105 years, his father to a kid named Enosh. What do I really care how many years Adam and Eve lived before they have their third kid, Seth? Well, how long their third kid, Seth, lives? Because before he has his first kid, Enosh. Who cares? What does it matter to me? So the Bible, probably not having superfluous information, indicates that it wants to have a calendar. Okay? And the basic indication is in the first three kids that Adam and Eve have. So Adam and Eve have Cain and Abel. They don't get along too well, so Cain murders Abel. Abel's now out of the picture. Cain is still around. God banishes Cain. It's something to remember. Not for tonight's discussion with the other rabbis. Why did God allow Cain to murder Abel? I mean, obviously God could have stopped Cain from murdering Abel, because when God tells Cain to get away from him, leave the town, Cain leaves town. Okay, so that's the question. But remember, Cain is around, and Abel's dead, and that's chapter 4. And in chapter 4, we read the lineage, the progeny that come from Cain. Person after person, generation after generation, what they did, etc., etc. But no ages are given. Not a single age is given for when each one lived and had a child, etc. Then you come to chapter 5, and we suddenly read Adam and Eve have a third kid named Seth after 130 years. Seth lives 105 years, a kid named Enosh. Now what would be the difference? Why wasn't I told that they were about the ages for Cain's progeny? They did great things. The sophisticated Tubal-Cain, son of Remer, invents the casting of metals, the Bronze Age. We're told explicitly he does it. Why am I given the ages? Because ages for Cain's line would be superfluous. Because Cain's line disappears. It adds nothing to an ongoing calendar. It's through Seth that we get to Noah, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the whole lineage that we know about. So the Torah leaves out a hint that the Torah wants us to take the trouble to add up these numbers and get a calendar. is that the superfluous information, namely the ages of the generations of Cain, are omitted because they add nothing to an ongoing calendar, but they disappear. It's through Seth that we get the ongoing calendar, and for those we're given. So we're given the ages. So the Torah already tells us that it wants us to add up the ages. Why? I don't have a clue, because certainly if we didn't know any ages, it wouldn't matter whether it's 14 billion years, 100 gazillion years, or 2 minutes. But for some reason, the Torah feels that it wants us to have this knowledge. And so we get it. So we come to a number of 57, 77 by adding up all the ages that were given in the Bible. Then we come to the end of the Tanakh, and we add on the ages of the kings and queens and Darius and the presidents. We get to a number less than 6,000 years. That's the biblical age. Conversely, when we take the science point of view, we discover something amazing. That light has the characteristic of being both a wave and a particle. It's impossible to understand what that means, but your iPhone, or your cell phone, your smartphone, or your remote control won't work unless it's true that it's both a wave and a particle. I mean, a wave goes like this and goes forever. A particle is fixed and has edges. Waves don't have edges. They extend forever. They get less and less. But the entire world is made up of waves and particle duality. In fact, that's what got Einstein his Nobel Prize. Einstein did not win a Nobel Prize for Bose relativity. Einstein won his Nobel Prize for the phenomena that keeps the elevator door from shutting on your leg. Einstein realized that the right energy of light shining on a metal will knock out electrons. So you don't see the light because it's a wavelength our eyes can't see. There are lots of light wavelengths we can't see. Dogs can see lights that we can't see. Okay. So the light goes across right where you'd be walking. And as long as the light is hitting that piece of metal and then knocking out electrons and making an electrical surface, hence electricity, electron, knocking them out, it's saying, okay to shut the door. The moment your leg goes between it stops that light beam. No more electrons being knocked out. No more current. It says, open the door. There's something in the way. For that, every time you go into an elevator, you should share that with the other people in the elevator. You can thank Albert Einstein for not having the door crunch their legs. Okay, so that's what he gets up to the particle aspect. So he takes light particles. So we have a wave particle duality, and the wave aspect of light is phenomenally useful. Because if we live into what seems to be an expanding universe, and the universe is getting bigger by space stretching, no one knows what that means, but that's what space is stretching. The universe isn't getting bigger like an onion or a cabbage, or a lettuce, with new layers of space being added on. What's happening is the space that's intrinsic already to the universe, which started as a tiny speck, is stretching out. And in that stretching, as it stretches, any light waves that are traveling through space are stretched with it. They're literally swimming through the space. So what happens if we look at galaxies far, far away, we see light coming in, and by the characteristics of the light, we can tell how much it's stretched. And then we look at galaxies further away and see how much more they're stretched. And by looking at how much the light wave is actually stretched, we can measure how the light is actually moving away from us, namely that the galaxy is moving away. Now we don't talk about the Hubble telescope, but there would be no Hubble telescope if it weren't for Henrietta Leavitt. Henrietta Leavitt produced the basic work that allowed Hubble to do his work, which got him so famous. She was about to get a Nobel Prize, but made the mistake of dying of cancer, and they don't give Nobel Prizes to dead people. So she didn't get it, but Hubble had recommended her for a Nobel Prize, because all of his work was based on it. So she really, most people don't even know her name, but Henrietta Leavitt should be the star of astronomy, because she developed a system that lets you measure how far away these galaxies were. When we see a point of light, we don't have no how to measure how far away that point of light is, but she developed a system. Not points of light in our galaxy, but other galaxies. So once you can measure how the galaxies are moving out, it's discovered that the further the galaxies are from us, the faster they're moving away. So now you can make a measure of how much space is stretching. And so you put those data, the universe is this big today, and then next year this big and this big. Well, wait a minute. If it's this big today, and then next year it's this big, and the following year this big, well, let's run the equation backward. Not this year to next year, this year to last year, to millions of years ago, to billions of years ago. When you run this huge stretching back in space to a point in the beginning, it takes about 14 billion years at the rate the universe is expanding to come back to a point. So that's how we get the age of the universe at 14 billion years. So the 14 billion years we get by looking into space and getting the data, and the age of the universe is gotten by, from the Bible's point of view, is gotten by adding up the generations that are in the Bible. The difficulty is this idea of 6,000, something a bit less than 6,000 years, at 5777 to 14 billion years. So how does that we handle that? It's in Genesis chapter 1, you probably all know Genesis chapter 1, that the first sentence says there's a creation to the universe, which for only a few of us in this room is big news, because less than 50, back at MIT, if I were teaching the age of the universe, let's say, I wasn't there because 50 years ago, 40 years ago, okay, 40 years ago, if I was teaching back at MIT 40 years ago, and I said, let's talk about the age of the universe, I might have gotten thrown out. Because the overwhelming scientific opinion, which most of you probably don't realize, age of the universe, you're kidding, the universe is eternal. The Bible's wrong from the first sentence. You have to realize that until less than approximately 40 years ago, the overwhelming scientific opinion was, forget Shabbos, forget Kashrut, the Bible couldn't even get the first sentence right. The universe was eternal. It's important to realize every change in science for the last 50 years has moved science closer to the biblical understanding. And the biggest change was by Arnold Penzias and Robert Wilson when they discovered the echo of the Big Bang. They discovered the energy that had been predicted that if there had been a creation, it would have been a burst of energy, and as the universe, from a tiny point, it would spread out, become more and more dilute, and all the energy that didn't go into making you and me the chairs that you're sitting on, the stars and the galaxies, would still fill space, but it would be so stretched out, it'd be very weak. It's called the echo of the Big Bang. Overnight, good discovery. They didn't know what they discovered, but they did get the Nobel Prize when it was explained to them. They discovered the echo of the Big Bang. And overnight, the understanding of the world changed from a universe that was eternal to a universe that was had a beginning. And that's big news, because the Bible has been claiming that for 3,500 years, that there's been a beginning. And science has been claiming it for less than approximately 50 years. So it's not a small thing that we now understand in creation. And the term the Big Bang is a leftover from the generations when we thought there was no creation. If you look up the surveys, the nice thing about the web, internet, who's the person that conceived of and essentially invented the internet? There is a name associated with the internet which allows your cell phones, since you all use them, you should really know a little bit of history. What's his name? Leonard Kleinrock. Sound Jewish? Every bit of modern communications is based on Jewish brains. There's no exception for that. Every bit. And the primary is the internet, Leonard Kleinrock, let alone Facebook and Google and WhatsApp and all those, obviously, but it's pretty amazing. How do I get into that? I have no idea. Anyway, we have these two ages, and they seem to conflict. The Bible opens Genesis chapter 1. The first sentence is a creation of the universe. Now we know that was correct. And then Genesis chapter 1 is broken into 6 days, and by 5.5 days, into half the 6th day, we get to Adam, where it says God creates the Adam. Now, a crucial part of this whole creation story is that the Ramban Nachmanides makes explicit 3 times in the opening sentences, there's only one physical creation. All other creations in Genesis 1 are spiritual. The only physical creation, the creation of stuff, the beginning of time, space, and matter, is the first sentence of the Bible. God creates the heavens and the earth. Okay? So we have this creation of the heavens and the earth, but then we read later in verse 21 that God creates the animals. There's a bunch of animals. I get the translation most of them are wrong. They're just guessing. But the question is, that can't be a physical creation. There's only one physical creation. It does say that God creates it as a bunch of animals. That's the nephesh, the soul of animal life. It's a spiritual creation. The same is true with Adam in verse number 27, where God creates the Adam, Ek Adam. Verse 26, God makes Adam, Dev not Adam, but God doesn't create Adam, God creates the Adam. That you catch it why I pointed out to me. Ek Adam. It's a specific, we'll get to that as we go through the ages. So you have one physical creation, the physical world, it expands out, and gradually over time, this energy becomes people and chairs and everything else that you see around in stars and galaxies. A basic question that comes up is if in fact we are like the apple of God's eye, so why take 14 billion years to get to us? Why should it take 14 billion years? Why not just have it go like that? But the nature of the world is that God works through nature. That when nature is available to do a job, God uses the laws of nature and nature. And we see that explicitly in what we're reading now. We come out of Egypt, we're confronted by the Yam Suf, the Sea of Reeds. The Sea of Reeds is blocking away. The Egyptians are chasing after us. The vice is closing. We're screaming bloody murder to God. Save us, for goodness sakes, already. What do you do this to us for? And what happens? God splits the sea. With what? And what splits the sea? Exodus chapter 14, verse 21. A strong east wind that blows all night. I mean, God needs a wind like a hole there. God needs a wind to split the sea. I mean, come on, God, give me something exciting, like turn the water into marble and a rollerblade across. I mean, that would be impressive. But it's not even impressive to have a wind. Winds blow all the time. In fact, it was so unimpressive that after the Israelites go through the split sea, who follows them right on in? The Egyptians. Yeah, it's a wind. What's the big deal? Winds happen in this part of the world. Only when the waters are coming back, and they say, "Yeah, Habibi, God is fighting for the Hebrews, the Israelites." Only when the waters come back do the Egyptians see it's a miracle. The wind wasn't the miracle. It's timing and location. That's the miracle. Winds happen all the time. So much so that a couple of scientists a few years ago, one by the name of Nof and one by the name of Haldor, decided to see whether or not a wind could split the sea. And the guys in the front row can read this, but are there oceanographic explanations for the Israelites crossing the Red Sea? No. Now that should be completely uninteresting, except for the fact that it's published in the world's leading peer-reviewed journal of meteorology. If you read this in a Bible-thumping book, I would suggest drop it in the garbage, because it's probably bending the Bible, because we see that all the time. Apologies for saying that. But when you get it in the world's leading peer-reviewed journal of meteorology, that's a big deal. And it does turn out that a 40-mile-an-hour wind out of the east, remember God makes a strong east wind blow all night, splits the sea. Now 40 miles an hour isn't even a gale. It's a strong wind, but you can drive 40 miles an hour and hold your hand up the window. You know, you feel the breeze, but it doesn't blow you back. So it turns out that, the wind couldn't. No wonder the Egyptians weren't impressed. Maybe they read the article. And next thing you know, they're being swamped by the waters because God turns off the water. And in the computer study that split the sea, when the waters were turned off, it's an exact description. The waters don't take 8 hours to come back. They come back like a wall collapsing, like a tsunami coming in. So again, location and timing. But here we have an example explicit in the text of God using nature to get something done. So why would God take 14 billion years to get the people? Who needs it? Well, if you want to use nature out of a Big Bang, it takes about 14 billion years to get this happen. Because the Big Bang didn't produce children and chopped liver. Well, eventually it did, but not at the beginning. The beginning, it produces energy. Only energy, electromagnetic radiation. That's all you get out of the Big Bang. But it doesn't matter what theory you use, string theory, the other popular thing, which is no evidence that they're correct, but it all comes back to electromagnetic radiation, which is light beams. It's a fancy word for light beams. Super powerful light beams. Einstein showed that light beams, energy, could change into matter. That's the famous equation, equals mc squared. That equation doesn't say that energy disappears and becomes matter. That's exactly what it doesn't say. It says that energy can change form and become matter. Now, there's a guy drinking water back there, right? Now, when you're drinking that water, what's your name?
Michael.
Michael, when you're drinking water, what were you drinking?
H2O, is that the
Exactly. Hydrogen and oxygen. So why didn't you say, give me some of that on a hot day, you can't beat hydrogen and oxygen, huh? Blah, 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 blah. Right? Water never stops being hydrogen and oxygen. The next time you drink it, think about that. You are literally drinking what's usually considered two gases, but when they come together, they change form and they become water. You can break water apart and into hydrogen and oxygen with electrical current. So it never stops being hydrogen and oxygen. It just changes form. That's exactly what E equals mc squared said. With the first of the bombs I worked with was the uranium-235 bomb, the stuff that's being made a few thousand kilometers in that direction, which I'll just say, if you're praying for peace, you're wasting your time. You should pray if everything counts on God, but act as if everything counts on you. Because that's the way the world works, like it or not. That uranium-235, when it suddenly blew up the mountain I was making the mistake of being standing on, there was an underground explosion, and this, like, we misjudged the energy here by a huge amount. The whole mountain. It's embarrassing, so I have to be standing on the top of the mountain. But it wasn't that the uranium metal then had to become energy and explode when the neutrons were whacking it around. No, it was always energy. It was always in the energy of the form of a metal. Like water is hydrogen and oxygen, but in the form of water. And it is not poetry, but the literary fact is that we are essentially we are the light of creation. The energy never stops being energy. It just changes form. So when literally, not poetically, when you look in the mirror in the morning, which you get older, it gets pretty depressing. But when you look in the mirror of the morning, you are literally, not figuratively, literally looking at the light of creation in a form called you. Energy never stops being energy. The E equals mc squared, where it says energy can change form, remain energy, but take on the form of matter. But the matter is always energy in a condensed form. Like water is hydrogen and oxygen in a liquid form. Okay, anyway, so if you want to make a universe with people in it and use nature, it takes billions of years. The energy condenses and becomes the lightest first of the elements, hydrogen and helium, two lightest elements, and a smidgen of lithium, number 3. But it's primarily hydrogen and helium. Now, there's a beautiful nuance in that, as if the universe was made for life, because the universe would have liked to have converted everything to helium, but there's a difficulty in this transition from hydrogen to helium, so it ends up with the universe about 70%, 75% hydrogen. Now, hydrogen is great for making stars, but it's not good for making people. And we want to get people out of this big bang. Stars get their energy by squeezing hydrogen together, called fusion, and the hydrogen squeezes so tight together it becomes helium, number 2, and releases a huge amount of energy. Okay, and that's the way stars make their energy. But when eventually stars use up all of it, so now we got helium, so eventually the stars use up these first generation stars, which appear very rapidly in the universe. Shortly after the creation, we already have stars. But it takes billions of years for them to use up that hydrogen. And then what happens is, the energy is being made in the center of the star. So light has this energy as a pressure. It's pushing out against the star's body, and there's gravity pulling in. All that time that gives them energy being made, this hydrogen fusing to helium, is pushing out, and gravity is pulling in. But suddenly, and really suddenly in galactic terms, there's no more hydrogen. Like a car running out of gas going uphill. It stops going up very quickly and starts going down. Suddenly, there's nothing pushing out, but the gravity pushing in doesn't go in, it stays, boom. And you get a supernova, and in those pressures, the elements of life are made. The carbon, the oxygen, the nitrogen, the iron, the stuff you need, calcium, the stuff you need to make life. There's no way of explaining our solar system other than the fact that we were stardust of exploded stars 5 billion years ago. There's no way of understanding the universe any other way than from a science point of view. So to get the stars to explode and then to make new stars, etc., takes billions of years, hence the 14 billion years. So if anyone had asked you, why, or if you ever have to struggle with why would God need 14 billion years, why not just, make the universe like that? For the same reason that God used the wind to split the sea. When nature is available, if you invent the laws of nature, using God, you might as well use them. And God uses those, because the biblical God uses the laws of nature. The way God is described in the Bible, God uses the laws of nature when they're available to be made. The miracles are the timing and the nuances that make it work. Okay, so now we have no problem with the 14 billion years, except for the fact that the Bible says less than 6,000 years. So how does it work? It works by trying to understand the biblical text from both science point of view and Torah point of view. We say, well, first of all, we see that the timeline, let's see if you can hear me. Can you hear me at all without the microphone? If you can, I'll take the microphone. Am I visible in the back? Yeah, visible, yeah. Am I audible in the back?
Great. All good.
Right.
Yes.
You're good.
You're us.
Raise your hand if you can't hear, if you cannot hear me. Okay. Okay, time up. Okay, time up. So here we have the Big Bang creation. Okay, and here we have the Big Bang creation, and here we have today Bible data. On the bottom, we have 14 billion years. These are science data. But the Bible data is not the scale now, obviously. I'm just showing. The Bible data start here. We have Adam, Eve. Okay, so from the creation of the universe to Adam is the 6 days in Genesis, right? The 6 days in Genesis chapter 1 starts off and it relates to the 6 days, and by halfway through the 6th day, we have Adam. So it's 5.5 days, and in fact the Talmud does say that Adam was created 5.5 days, halfway through the 6th day. It makes sense because if you look at the wording in the text, I don't know why the Talmud makes that statement, but if you look at the wording in the text, and you take the 6th day, and you count up the number of verses in day number 6, and then you see where Adam is, he falls spot on halfway through. So that may be the reasoning of this. But we have a two-part calendar. The calendar splits with Adam, and we have the 57 years from Adam forward. So the actual age of the universe isn't this as of last Rosh Hashanah. It's this plus the 5.5 days. In fact, I heard, I was at a chuppah, and the rabbi, whoever's reading the ketubah said, in the year, some said the creation of the world, very quietly on his bed, he said, "Be'etzem me'Adam." So I went over and asked him, how come he said that? He said, "I read your book." Yeah, in fact, we almost never hear that. Maybe lots of rabbis say this thing, but he made it a little bit come out. Now, one other thing, since this is mostly all guys and we do gals, it took me 20 years to figure this out. Thank God I had 40 years. The first 20 years would have been a lot smoother if I realized the following two aspects. I apologize for bringing this bit of sociology in. But after Adam has made this big mistake of telling, it was Adam that told Eve, don't touch the tree, right? We realize Eve says it, but obviously Adam told her to not to touch it, because when the snake touches it and nothing happens, Eve thinks the whole law is wrong. But if Eve had made that up, she wouldn't think anything would happen. Because if Eve had invented the idea of not eating, don't even touch it, right? When the snake touched it, or she touched it, nothing happened, she would expect nothing to happen. But she got it from Adam, who was a little bit too smart for his own boots, because he presented, don't eat it. He added to the law as if it were divine law, as opposed to rabbinic law. There's a big difference, okay? So when Eve makes this mistake and touches it, then she thinks it's, they get kicked out of Eden. It said, "Hope mess up." But at that point, here comes the important point, guys. Listen to this, okay, please. Adam renames Eve. In the beginning, Adam names her Isha, totally an ego trip. Isha, I know she's made for me, big ego trip. After he realized he's made this horrendous error that has ruined the world since then, so whatever is symbolized by that, it's ruined a lot of goodness that could have been. He renames her. He names her and he calls her. Does anybody know? I don't know how much you guys know. He names her and he calls her Chava. Now why? It says in the text, there's anyone in the room, doesn't matter, you guys whoever. Why does he call her Chava? Because she is? What? You say so I can hear it, you're right. The mother, say it. Yeah. Does Chava mean life? No. Yeah. That's the irony of that statement. It doesn't mean life. What's life? Chaya. Chaya. He should have named her Chaya. But he names her Chava because Chava is vastly more significant than Chaya. This I learned from Shlomo Rifkin. It's in Psalm 19. Chava is a source of wisdom that raises knowledge from one level to another. And he realized he had messed up, and that's why he changes her name. And it's the very next sentence when he renames her. Exactly after this disaster being tossed out of Eden, he renames her from Isha, which is a total ego trip, which most men have. It's unfortunate. It's true. It's almost embarrassing time to be a man. But you see it when you get married. Listen to your wife. 20 years of anyway, Chava is a source of knowledge that she has. Hence she's called Chava. But remember also something, that Adam was not a man. Or say it again, Adam was not a man. Make that clear. It says it in the first chapter. The 5th chapter is clear. God created them, male and female, and called their name Adam. Let that sink in. God created them, male and female, and called their name Adam. And it was Mr. Adam and Mrs. Adam. The only reason we know that Mr. Adam names Mrs. Adam Chava is because unlike in English where you can't tell who's speaking, man or woman, except for he and her and she and he. After that there's no more differentiates in the sexes. Okay, in Hebrew you can't tell. And it's Mr. Adam that names Mrs. Adam Chava. He finally got the story. But initially they were both named Adam, and that explains a lot about this building and the separation that you read in chapter 2 of the building, not the making of the building, the words of building of the woman. Anyway, okay, so much for that. All right, now get back to the topic. Okay, so we have 5.5 days leading to Adam, and then we have 70 years from Adam forward. So there's a split in the calendar. That's why we don't include the 6 days in the 57-77. Now, why wouldn't we do that? Primarily because the description of time for the first 6 days or 5.5 days, this is Genesis chapter 1, verse 27, where God creates the Adam, et ha-Adam, the neshama, the soul of human life. Okay? That the split is here, and there's 5.5 days leading up to this. The description of time here is unique. The bad English translation is there was English, there was evening and morning day 1, evening and morning second day. Very strange description of time. Whereas from Adam forward, every passage of time is human-based, earth-based. And we see that the calendar begins again when we have a calendar. Remember, we didn't have a calendar for Cain's kids, but for Adam's kids, through Seth, we did. And what did we learn? Seth lived 130 years with a kid named Enosh. Enosh lives, Adam lived 130 years, a kid named Seth. Seth lives 105 years, a kid named Enosh, etc. They're living on earth. Those births are taken on earth. So it's earth. So from Adam forwards, it's earth time. That we know for sure. The question is, what about the first 5.5 days? It's a bizarre description of time, which is used nowhere else in the entire Hebrew Bible. And it doesn't even say evening and morning. That's the Ramban points that out. The Hebrew is Erev and Boker. That's modern Hebrew, but not biblical Hebrew for here. Why can't it be evening? What makes evening become evening? What happens? What's the big event in our area in the world? Sunset. But when does the sun first mentioned? 4th day. Got a problem for evening and morning for all those days, right? So the Erev is what they call the golden apple in the silver dish. The Ramban says you have to use the root. Erev, the root of Erev isn't evening. The root meaning, today Erev Tov means evening. Good evening. But biblically, Erev in this chapter has to mean something else because there's no sun mentioned till later on. The sun may have been earlier. But what's the root of Erev? The root of Erev is the same reason that an Eruv works. It's the same word. What does an Eruv do? It mixes all the domains because the root meaning of Erev is Eruv. Is Eruv, which is mixture, chaos. It mixes the domains because the Ramban says when the sun sets, what happens to vision? It becomes chaotic. Hence using Erev for evening. This is the exact opposite as for Boker. Boker is orderly, like Levaker. When the sun rises, vision becomes orderly. It's all the Ramban. Nachman Schroeder, I always let you know. This is all the Ramban. So the actual change isn't there was evening and is morning. That's the unfortunate wording we have to use. It's there was chaos, Erev, gave way to order, Boker. And that never happens. What's interesting, what the Torah is telling something phenomenal here. In this Erev and Boker, then we'll get back to the age of the universe. It's saying something that never happens in nature. It's saying stage by stage, chaos gave way to order. And then that order rose to a higher level, day by day, to a higher level. It's an unequivocal statement. There's no caveat here. Order never arises spontaneously from a disorderly system and remains orderly unless something in nature expects that order and locks it in. If that order is compatible with the laws of nature. Order never arises spontaneously from a disorderly system and remains orderly unless something in nature accepts that order or it fits within the patterns of the laws of nature. And that's what the Torah is telling you. You should be amazed at the fact that rocks and water became alive, that light beams became matter, that matter became life, that life became brain and brain became mind. It's phenomenal. Higher and higher levels of order. It is completely against the understanding of the laws of physics, and yet it worked. And that's what the Torah is saying. Be amazed. It's not evening and morning. There's no sun mentioned till days later. It's added giving way to boka. It's chaos giving way to order. Okay, but the description of time here is unique. It's different from there. It never occurs again. So this is a separate calendar. So you have a creation of the universe, a burst of energy. The energy expands out. The universe expands out. The energy becomes matter. Einstein taught us that. This takes about 100,000 per second. This transition here. Most of the E remains E. Most of the energy doesn't get into matter, but what does get in, it forms hydrogen, helium, then through the stars we talked about a moment ago. So, we have these 5.5 days, and we have the 57.7, and science wants the sun not. They're not talking about sunrise, sunset, really, as we got past that. The days are 24 hours each day. Is no divergence in that understanding. So let that sink in. Which is worried about the age of the universe. Not the baby bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah answer. Oh, the days were wrong, here's the time. That's fine, except maybe wrong. That means Rashi's wrong, and Nachmanides is wrong, and you're right. No, it's probably the other way around. So how can this possibly be that we have these days? And the key is brought by the certain persons that bring this information. Because they say if the days, like the 6 days of our work week, so you can't say the hours were different. We're stuck with 6 24-hour periods that the Torah said, that science says is 14 billion years. The key is in the wording and the numbering of the days. At the end of each day, we have this Vihit Erev Boker. Okay, this flow from chaos to order. Yom, and the day is numbered. Can somebody read the day? Verse number 5 is for the first of the days. How does it read? Anybody know the Bible off by head? By heart to say? Erev Boker. Yom Echad. What about the next day? Next day, Shishi. So then, notice the form of the number changes. This is the Rambam points out. Here's Yom Echad, day 1, then a second day, a third day, a fourth day. And he asks, why does the text say day 1? Why doesn't it say a first day? It says second day, third day, fourth day. He gives the most amazing answer. He says the text couldn't say day 1 because there wasn't yet a second day. It's like in the world wars. No one, aside from the pessimists, no one calls the First World War the First World War. They say it was the Great War, the war to end all wars. But for the Second World War, guess what? It became the First World War. I fought in the First Lebanese War. None of us fighting in Lebanon, including my 4 buddies that didn't come back from the Lebanese War, said we were fighting the first Lebanese War. We were fighting in Lebanon. But now I have to say I fought in the First Lebanese War. Why? Because there's been a second Lebanese War. Right. That's the difference. It's a personal difference, so I always mention that. So the text tells us, Nachmanides says, day 1, because there was not yet a second day. Now that's bizarre in the extreme, because Nachmanides had actually read the Bible a few times. And he knew the Torah wasn't given to Adam, it's given to a guy named Moses, a man named Moses, out here in a mountain called Sinai, which is probably in Saudi Arabia, not in the Sinai Peninsula. And if you add from Adam to Moses on Sinai, it's 2,448 years from Adam to Moses on Sinai. Well, 2,448 years times 365 days a year comes out to be just approximately 890,000 days. And what's he telling me there wasn't a second day? By the time he gets to Sinai, there's been approximately 900,000 second days. And so we learn that if the view of time for the 6 days of Genesis were from Sinai, looking back, the Torah would have written a first day. Because by Sinai, there have been hundreds of thousands of second days. The Torah looks forward from the beginning, from the only time in history when there hadn't been a second day, is how old is the universe? Oh, about 5.5 days. We look back in time, and we see 14 billion years. And those years went by. There were dinosaurs that were destroyed 65 million years ago. They first appeared about 250 million years ago. the Earth forms about 4 billion years ago. Life starts about 3.8 billion years ago. The solar system about 8 billion years. All those years went by as we measure them. But how would they be perceived? And this is the operational word here. From the Bible's point of view. We don't have the Bible's point of view. But that's the Bible's point of view since day one. Because it sees time from the beginning or before. The 14 billion years that we see went by. If we measured the age of the universe from anywhere else in the universe, we would get a different number. There is no absolute age to the universe. But our number for our condition on Earth in the universe is 14 billion years. And that's the number that we live with. And those are the numbers of the dinosaurs, etc., exist in our time frame. You go other places, you go like very close to a black hole, like just past the horizon. And it might take, the age of the universe might appear like a microsecond because the gravity is so powerful. So realize these numbers are totally relative to where you are, but it's not the laws of relativity. Well, gravity is the laws of relativity. But wherever you are, you have an age to the universe. Our age is 14 billion years. That's the number that we get. So how should that be different from the Bible's point of view? So just a very quick thought experiment. There's a galaxy over here, and this galaxy is a beauty. I mean, what a great galaxy. But we don't see it lifetime. We see it with a great big telescope over here. We're watching that galaxy in time. It is a gorgeous galaxy. But that light has to travel to us through space. And if the galaxy is so far away, it may take billions of years for the light to reach us. So what happens? On the galaxy, a star explodes, or a supernova. Like it uses up all the hydrogen, it explodes. The light goes out in all directions, the same road direction. Just talk about the light coming towards it, boom. And then a week later, another star explodes. So the first burst moves a whole week, and zooming away, but if you make it still, the second burst would catch you up in a week, because they're separated by a week. But obviously they don't. They both keep moving through space. But now they're moving through time and space towards us for the billions and billions of years, to get to reach us, till they reach the Earth, the light traveling over this time. But as they travel, the universe is expanding. Space is stretching. The space between the bursts gets bigger and bigger. That's when the universe doubles in size. So here it's 1 week apart. But now you got, it took so long, it's twice as much space. The first burst hits the telescope. The second burst doesn't arrive a week later. Space is now twice as big. So how much later does it arrive? 2 weeks later. My reality in the world is those big bursts occurred 2 weeks apart. Anyone who takes astronomy now can figure out the age of the universe without my even speaking of, because this is it. I want to know, back in time, what those bursts look like billions of years ago. Well, I can't go back physically in time, but mathematically is no trick. I call up an astronomer, how far is the galaxy, how much is space stretch, and I go back in time. As you go back in time, the universe is getting smaller and smaller, and mathematically, the distance between the bursts gets smaller. It becomes 1 week. 1 week, 2 weeks. Two perspectives in time. I look back in the universe, and I see 14 billion years. What would it look like from the beginning looking forward? For that, I have to know the stretching of space, because I want to run this information that I've measured in 14 billion years back towards a time when the universe is smaller. And anyone realizes the information back in time, time compresses exactly the perception of time. The perception of time compresses exactly as space compresses. So how do we make the number? Well, we really couldn't make a number because we don't know the size of the universe exactly. And one thing for sure we don't know is the size of the universe at its creation. But Nachmanides does the following. He says, Hazman Nivra, time is created at the creation, which is a huge insight. I mean, the idea that time not have a creation is phenomenal by itself. But then he writes something amazing. He writes, only when matter forms does the clock of the Bible grab hold. Hazman Nivra, about Mishya Yesh, Yifos Ozman. Tofet means what? Tofet grabs a hold. The time grabs a hold. So the clock grabs a hold right here when matter forms. The first stable matter is protons. Neutrons are not stable; they decay unless they're inside in the nucleus. So the first proton is what defines matter. 1 proton means hydrogen. 2 protons mean helium. 6 protons mean carbon. 8 means iron. So we have a clock that begins here, And we make a measurement of the size of the age of the energy of the universe here. We know the energy level that it takes for matter to become protons. We know that number. That's a no number. No, it's a science number. And it tells you the energy level that's required. And then we know the energy level of space today. You do it by temperatures. And that ratio, normalized, I'm rounding it off, I'm not going to go to the exponentials here, okay? This out, okay? That normalized ratio of how much larger the universe is here than here is 900 billion. It's interesting, it's billions. Space has stretched out by 900 billion, and we get that number by looking at the energy level of space here, and the energy level required to make protons here on the top of the Bible begins. That ratio is 900 billion. It's unitless. It's not seconds, minutes, or hours. Just to make it clear, if I had 10 degrees and I divide it by 5 degrees, I want you to tell me the answer. What's the answer? 2 what? What's the answer? 2. Even 2 answers. Which is 2. Well, why is it 2 degrees? Say it. Degrees cancel, exactly. And that's exactly the ratio here. The 2 energy units, temperature cancel. There's this 900 billion, which means if I had 900 billion seconds worth of history here, out of a caveman, it would look like 1 second from here. 900 billion hours would look like 1 hour. All the information is there, but it's all compressed like a video and super fast forward. Well, we think the universe is something like 14 billion years old. Those are the data we have today. From our perspective, it is 14 billion years old. But what would it look like from the Bible's perspective? What's so nice about this is that the zeros all cancel off. And you're left with 14 years divided by 900. Well, 14 years divided by 900 equals 15 thousandths of a year. The age of the universe, from the Bible's perspective, looking forward from the beginning, is not even a year. It's 15 thousandths of a year. They get hung up on 15 thousandths of a year. It's pretty much a bunch of nitpicking. But it's so late at night, it's hard to remember these numbers, so it's easy to convert 15 thousandths of a year into days, which are multiplied by 365, right? Years to days, that's correct, I think. Guess what you get? 5.5. You're 5.5 days. It's not a trick. You can make a joke out of it, but friends, that calculation put my second book on the bestseller list for an entire year. Bragging, I'm not. The royalties did that just fine. But the simple fact is, you don't ask for the bestseller list for a year if it's a joke. Okay? The fact is, the universe is, the days work 24 hours each, from the Bible's perspective. Within each day, there are billions of our years compressed, like a video and super fast forward. And because I'm not going to get into it, but just every time the universe doubles in size, the perception, the compression is by a factor of 2, triples in size by a factor of 3, a million by a factor of a million. Look at the ratio change. It's a ratio, right? Those 2 lines are a ratio, one divided by the other. So if I say double, in fact, just say, I'm going to move these apart at a constant speed, please, with no joking, okay? Say double every time the space doubles between them. Watch the markers. Don't just say, okay? Do me a favor, okay? So they're in space. The universe is beginning. Now it's moving out. Every time the space between the markers doubles, say double. Double. Really? Okay, continue. Double. Oh, you understand? It's a constant. It takes longer and longer to double. So just very quickly, we're running out of time now. Just quickly, the way that it works out is that the first 24-hour day, the first day, has 7 billion of our years folded in. The second day, that's the first day. The second day has 3.5 of our years. The third day, it goes half. Each day is a half, or a half-life. It follows this exponential relationship. And when you add up to 7 and 3.5, 1.8, it's 0.9, half, comes out, I'm sure it's surprised, but it does come out to be 14 billion years. So that's the reality. Now, hey, what's the question?
Can you show them how it breaks down the 6 days to the way science says what happened on each
No.
day?
Right now, if you have a text in front of you, I mean, I can do it. I can do it in document. On the board, can you do that?
Yes. I saw it's absolutely amazing. What happens on each day according to science, billions of years, and what it says in the Chumash happens on each day. How parallel.
Well, I just hear it because it takes so much writing.
Okay, yeah.
No, and then we just have the first of the days, which has this 7 billion receiver type. We talk about day 1. You know the major events of day 1. The creation of the universe is the biggest deal of all. And then light breaks free. Like the light breaks free, and those are the things that actually happen. That's what Torah says about the universe, and science says the same thing. The universe is originally opaque. It's opaque because the temperatures are so high that it blocks all light from getting out into space. Like you can't see into the sun. You can't see into the sun not because the sun is so bright, you can put a shade up. You can't see into the sun because the temperature is so high, so it's called a plasma. A plasma is when the electrons are so energetic they can't bond around the protons. Right? An atom has a center with protons and electrons float around it. Temperatures are high, the electrons just bouncing all over the place. And light bounces off the electrons, so it becomes opaque. In fact, the theory is, from measurements, that when a light beam is released in the center of our sun, it takes 25,000 years, moving at the speed of light, to get from the center to get out into space, because it's just bouncing around like a ping pong ball on a billiard table, with lots of other balls moving around. Okay, so the second day, I'm just going to jump very quickly to the 5th day, just to finish it. The 5th day would say that the waters teem with teams of living creatures. That's the opening sentence. And the Bible goes out on a straight limb. It says in this period, in this time period, which matches exactly the time period we're talking about now for the 5th day, it says life starts in the waters. The waters teem with teams of living creatures. And if I can find the, let's get into this, but if I can find this slide, something called the Cambrian explosion of life. That suddenly, out of the blue, every body plan that exists today comes into existence. It's called the Big Bang of animal evolution, and I dropped these before, they got all mixed up, so somewhere in here is a slide from Scientific American. Yeah, no, sorry, I don't find it. Never mind. Anyway, science calls it the Big Bang of animal evolution. Here it is, yeah. Evolution, Big Bang, scientific evolution, that every body plan, there's 32 body plans, they're called phyla, that all appear simultaneously in the fossil record. There's no understanding how that happened, okay? It doesn't prove there's a God, but it sure proves you don't understand evolution, and that might mean that there's something going on which is beyond this randomness. I happen to have this one. This happened about 500 million years ago. And look at the picture. It's in the waters. Every body plan appears. And the headline in Scientific American, which is a completely materialist journal, and it was totally 100% anything against Godlike. Almost 600 million years ago, animal evolution demonstrated an unmatched burst of creativity. Has the mechanism of evolution altered in ways that prevents fundamental changes of body plans? No, the mechanism of evolution hasn't changed, but our understanding of evolution has to change to make this make sense, because there's no way of making sense otherwise. If it's randomness doesn't give me an answer. So that's just the 5th day, because it's crucial that the waters teem with teams of living. What a state! That's the first mention of animal life, and this is the first appearance of animal life that's visible. Before this, to see any individual animal required a microscope. That's why they weren't known.